Do you like blades like I do? Well, you don't have to really, but if you like melee combat in video games, you might have noticed that lately more and more of them offer a first-person experience when you can see your weapon up close and yet the blood of the enemies splattered all over your screen. Ah, the good stuff.
Greetings! I am not a witcher, but I do appreciate good melee combat in games, especially with a first-person camera view and in a fantasy or medieval setting. You might have seen my first video on this topic, but since then quite a few noticeable games came out that simply must be added to the list.
So here it is, 9 more fantasy/medieval games with a first-person view and melee combat. Another killer title nailed. Let's start with a strong contender on the best melee combat in gaming and the best simulator of a medieval gravedigger, Kingdom Come: Deliverance 2. It is an amazing sequel to the already great original game, and it improves every aspect of the first game, including the bathhouses, and most importantly, the combat. First of all, it is now simpler to get good at, because you have only 4 possible attack directions instead of the 5 like in the prequel. Wait, is it a prequel if it came out before its sequel? Or am I just lost a bit? Anyway, the combat system is what you may call a more realistic approach to swordplay in gaming. Basically, any strike at you should be parried, dodged or blocked, or you might be seriously wounded or killed, no matter how well armored you think you are. Well, armor is really useful, but you still can't expect to be a damage sponge, as it is often seen in fantasy games. Another improvement comparing to the first Kingdom Come: Deliverance: fights with several opponents. Here, it is easier to mind your enemies and avoid being surrounded by them. I said easier, you still have to learn to do that. By the way, there are many opportunities to practice your skills with NPC trainers, after which you are left beaten and exhausted, just like the real-life combat practice would be. So yes, this is one of the best melee combat systems, not just in RPGs, but in gaming at all. Kingdom Come: Deliverance 2 has only one significant flaw. It is not a fantasy. But that's just a matter of personal preference. Avowed is a fantasy RPG set in the world of Pillars of Eternity, for those who know their isometric RPGs. But here, you can swing blades and hurl magic at your enemies, almost at the same time even, from a first-person perspective. And you will do that a lot between the conversations, finding chests in unexpected places, upgrading your gear and taking cool screenshots. The game is all about exploration of natural and not really natural environments, and more importantly, combat. The combat in this game can be many things: a literal shooter, a magic show, a dance of dodges and slashes, a shield measuring contest, or a combination of anything that you want. There are a lot of possible playstyles, and you are not restrained to any specific class. I am currently playing a lightly armored, fast-moving fighter with 2-handed weapons, because I like to strike rarely but deadly. There's a lot of cool weapons in the game. Every type moves and feels a bit different, have different weight and impact of blows. This is so satisfying. Avowed is not really an open-world game, because different locations are not available to you without story progression and without upgrading your gear. The game has a system where some enemies could be almost invincible if your armor and weapon is even one stage lower than you are intended to have in this region. Like, see the skulls above? No man, she's way out of your league. But suit up a bit? Now you're in the same league, so you can get your ass kicked fair and square. From the other hand, early in the game you can even feel overpowered as soon as you get better gear in the same location. That's why I recommend playing on higher difficulty levels, so these restrictions kinda feel more natural, and also the combat feels more challenging and tactical. And please, do not expect the game to be a new Skyrim. This is not a sandbox world simulation. But in its core gameplay, Avowed really shines. This unexpected little gem will make the eyes of many of you wet with sweet nostalgic tears, because it is exactly what it's made for, and boy does it achieve its goal. Arthurian Legends is what you may call a boomer shooter, and not like when you shoot annoying old people who say that games were better in my time, but like when you are one of those people. But it's not only a shooter, it has melee combat and it is fun. The game is set in the era of King Arthur, just like the title suggests, but with some artistic liberties. The evil Saxons are invading, so you must protect all that you love and follow the advice of the load screen. Make your enemies dead by killing them. Words of wisdom to live by. It is basically an action RPG. You find weapons, armor, food and potions which you consume immediately or put in your inventory. You fight your enemies and find a way forward. Simple but engaging gameplay with fun little details, like the fact that you can chop off an enemy's head and then kick it down the road with a satisfying sound. Shields and some weapons break with use, forcing you to experiment with different playstyles, and melee combat is simple but satisfying. Arthurian Legends has a free demo, which you can check out to make your own opinion. Oblivion Remastered came out this year and made all the fans of the Elder Scrolls universe first a bit confused, and then quite excited to put on their Daedra-kicking boots once again. But what about the melee combat, you may ask? Because it sucked in Oblivion in 2006. Don't worry, I say, the combat here is just as awkward as you Wait a minute. This looks and feels interesting. My swings are fast even at my low level, and the animations look quite nice. Could it be that they improved this aspect of the game? Also, I feel like they improved the dungeons in the game, not in a way that they give you a quick exit at the end of a dungeon or a cave like in Skyrim, but in the way that there is much more to loot, and so I am much more motivated to delve in the dungeons than in the original. The only thing that really frustrates me is the annoyingly short range of my strikes. I mean, it looks like I'm so close to this dummy that I can just slap it with my bare hand. Not that it deserves a slap, it didn't offend me or something. Anyway, I feel like I should hit it, but I need to get even closer to it to reach it with melee weapon. Even two-handed weapons have this problem. But that's just a matter of getting used to. And I'm sure somebody has already made a mod to improve that. So, with this new feeling of combat and renewed looks of the world, and the fact that I haven't played the original since Skyrim came out, I think I should give Oblivion Remastered a real chance. Of course, after I finish playing Avowed. I like fantasy with ancient Middle Eastern vibes, and City of Brass is exactly that. Genies, lamps, curved swords and sand. Sand everywhere. And riches, which in this game you will be picking up maybe even more than you will be fighting. And then you will spend those riches on buying random upgrades from genies to do more fighting and more treasure gathering. I couldn't call it treasure hunting because those treasures are just lying around almost everywhere. In homes, in the market squares, on the streets. The only thing that is more abundant here is traps. So many traps. In homes, in the market squares, on the streets. How did these people live here anyway? No wonder the city is a ghost town. Maybe that's why it's called the City of Brass, not because of the brass domes on the towers and palaces, but because there are more brass spikes ready to spring than there are enemies trying to make a kebab out of you. The melee combat itself is not as elaborate and lightning fast as in some other games, but you can use your surroundings and the traps work on your enemies too, which is something. And you have a whip, not only for taking hats off the heads of the undead guardians, but also for acquiring more treasures. The game is a simple and fun roguelike adventure, which means if you die, you're dead, and you have to start all over again. So look out for those genies with healing, and for traps. So many traps. Mortal Sin is a strange one. Its visual style and overall atmosphere is unlike anything I've ever seen and probably would be best described as a surreal horror slasher. Imagine that the original Diablo and Edvard Munch's Scream had a baby, and now you are playing that baby? No. Imagine that you're trying to describe your weird dream to someone. Like, I was in a dungeon or a cave, and there were body parts sticking from the walls, and I had a big sword or a Morgenstern, and I had to hack and slash through the bodies, and sometimes I would find chests. I mean, like treasure chests, and sometimes walking human chests. And no, it's not a sex dream, I hope. The game is all about melee combat. It has a starting area that is kinda like your base, and you can go to dungeons, caves, forests, or even pirate ships. And if you die or you finish the level, you return to this area and can even talk to this woman, who cannot really explain what is going on here. But you don't play this kind of game for a deep and engaging story. You play this game for big swords, gore, and the process. The process of turning your enemies into gore with your big swords. Mortal Sin has a progression system with many abilities, and it has loot. No inventory, you just switch your gear to the better gear and sell the old one instantly. Convenient. So nothing would distract you from hacking and slashing. Nightingale is quite different from the other games in this list, because it is a survival crafting game in an open world where 19th century Europe is combined with fey magic. As I recently learned, this style is called gaslamp fantasy, and not to be confused with gaslighting fantasy. I wonder what that would be like. As you might have guessed, the combat part is not the main gameplay element here. I would say that exploration, resource gathering, building and crafting will take at least the same amount of time as fighting through the weird creatures that populate the Fey realms, but that depends heavily upon your playstyle. Maybe you like to dress up like a gentleman or a lady. Here you can live your dream by processing raw materials and manufacturing your clothes by hand, like a proper gentleman. And if you want to get weapons more serious than your starting Stone Age tools, you will have to unlock a lot of technologies and refine a lot of different raw materials, which by the way define the properties and the color of your gear. Like this blade made from copper, which should be a terrible choice for a blade, but hey, it works. And while browsing the technology tree, you will probably get swayed by the firearms that you can craft rather than good old melee weapons, but there is a lot of possibilities to arm yourself, and the feeling of melee combat is quite nice. That's why I included this game in the list. The world of Nightingale is simply beautiful and can be really weird sometimes, but when did that stop us, right? You can play it solo or in co-op with your friends, and even though it is in early access, it is fun and intriguing. Ever wanted to be an assassin stuck in an alternate world after you kill the wrong sorcerer? Well, now you can, with a game called Darkblade Ascent, which gives you not one, but two game modes. One, where you go through the levels progressing further after you defeat all the enemies in the current room, like building a career in a corporation, and the other mode, where you are put into the arena with endless hordes of enemies from where you can extract whenever you choose with all the loot and gold you can take with you, like when you are a freelancer. In both modes, if you die, you lose your progress and your loot, just like in the real life, but with a chance to try again. And the loot here is pretty cool. What I liked especially is the blocking system here. Yes, you have to time your blocks, but when you do, you get a cool counterattack and additional push ability to throw back several enemies. And you can even deflect spells with your weapon. Take that, enemy mages! The combat feels very satisfying and the progression very engaging. The only thing that feels kinda strange is when you see a treasure chest and it tells you that you don't have enough gold to open it? What?
Not enough gold.
Isn't that the opposite of how treasure chests work? Is it some kind of network marketing pyramid scheme? Anyway, the game is still in early access, but it's already in a good state and very enjoyable. Lycanvale. Lichenval? This game feels exactly as dark, gloomy and unforgiving as it looks. Except for this pumpkin guy, he looks kinda festive. The story is, well, does it really matter in this kind of game? You have your sword and your magic to defeat your enemies, but your main weapon is your dodge. You will have to dodge so much to avoid being hit that if you have a motion sickness, the game is not for you. The combat, honestly, this is one of the most demanding and fast-paced first-person melee combat systems that I ever tried. Blocks should be timed perfectly or you will get hit, some attacks cannot be blocked at all, and the speed of your dodge, seriously, it is kinda too fast for me. I'm not a Korean teenager anymore. I mean, I never was, and never had the reflexes like that. It is a classic-inspired and kinda nostalgic linear game with a dark fantasy atmosphere, and if you want to challenge your combat skills, you should try it. Now, this game is a bonus one, because it's not quite what this list is about, but it's a fun one. Shady Knight has physics-based parkour and acrobatic melee combat with grappling your enemies, throwing objects and a lot of jumping. And falling, if you're anything like me. A lot of falling. But it's quite engaging. I don't really know who is this red skull with a dagger in it, but it all does sound mysterious. Check out the demo to try it yourself.
So this is my list of games with first-person melee combat, the second part of it. Check out the first video if you haven't, and let me know which games I might have missed that must be added to the list. So thank you for watching, consider subscribing to my channel. I'm still not a Witcher, and as always, take care and farewell.